Rabbi Rosen, do you think that there is any example where halakha has been developed to promote sustainability and had any effect?
Well, I think there's tons of it. I mean, also, and Yedid has also worked on that. I mean, if you just take the areas with regards to like questions of where tanneries can be built, they have to be in the city. The relationship, therefore, between in your own the damages that can be incurred and responsibilities with regards to people in terms of the living proximities even and the environmental damage that's already therefore within halachic material and has obviously therefore had some already impact in its time. The problem, of course, in so many aspects of Jewish life is therefore the diaspora existence, or the centuries in which we were in some state of suspended animation, meant that so many aspects of halakha therefore remain theoretical and very often have not been resourced in order to apply it to the modern context.
Right. So what I'm asking is that I know, but has there been, can you think of an example where, because of the present crisis, that halakha has been mined, a psak has been given, and something has changed?
So this is a fascinating area, which of course relates to the problem of conservative legal structures, almost by definition. I remember that when I was a student at the Mir Yeshiva, going back to the 60s, when in the winter you couldn't see from one end of the room to the other because of the smoke that people were smoking. Somebody put up an article on the notice board of the yeshiva, which wasn't about how we survived the flood in Jonestown, Pennsylvania, but it was about the dangers of smoking. This was before this became commonplace popular wisdom. Within a matter of less than half an hour, it had been pulled down and torn up. And I would say that even when it did become commonplace wisdom, there was still a reticence within more orthodox societies to be able to absorb those scientific truths because of, I would say, a fundamental conservatism both within that world, but also a profound suspicion of anything that comes from modernity as having anything to be able to reveal the value and of importance. But nevertheless, in the course of time, you've seen, therefore, Rav Avodah Yosef comes and he issues his psak and others issue psak that you shouldn't smoke. There's still enormous amount of smoking there within that society, but it still has had a certain impact. But paradoxically, things that come from the scientific world are more difficult to absorb within the more conservative religious communities unless religious leaders within those particular communities take the leadership and take the initiative.
And they have to be convinced to do so. And
exceptions, I mentioned Ravai Bo. The truth is that Reb Chaim David Halevi was way ahead of the pack. There are other issues like, today you've got issues which also I'm concerned about. For me, there's no separation between the issue of animal rights and therefore our relationship to the animal kingdom as well as environmental issues, but the use of strangles. Now, this is a very fascinating thing, and there are attempts to try to be able to get artificial furs into a use of strangle, and of course there's enormous resistance against that.
Yeah, a friend of mine is working to try and stop the killing of calves to make Sifrei Torah, because the conditions that they're grown in, the way they're treated is
well, I would say that's
awful.
True with the whole of the livestock trade. And in fact, I would go so far as to say that there isn't kosher meat today. Very rare, if it exists. But 90% of meat, I would say, no matter under what hashgacha, is not kosher in my opinion. But that's
David, which is a world issue. And I think on the first case, halachically, and I'm not a kind of a halachic man necessarily, I think it's quite clear there must be many examples where we have to look after environment because it can hurt us and the people around us. But I think it's more difficult when it comes to the issue of our actions here of having coal-fired power stations and driving cars are going to kill people in Bangladesh in a few years' time.
Well, that's
and
why.
That is, sorry. Yeah.
No, that's why I opened what I did, which you didn't.
Sorry.
No, it's okay. Don't worry.
Yeah.
Precisely to try to talk in terms of our global responsibilities. And
But it's not halachic, in halakha, it's not really discussed at all, really.
well, that's why I spoke with Rambam, who says in terms of the mitzvah to love God, you can only do so if you both not only meditate on the cosmos, but therefore learn to appreciate the cosmos. Appreciating it therefore also means protecting it. And therefore there are plenty of resources within Jewish texts to be able to articulate a global, sustainable world outlook and approach. But nevertheless, I think you're pointing to something which I was also alluding to in response to Michael, and that is that after the centuries of which we have been essentially alienated from our environment, developing therefore a sense of global responsibility is a new process of learning. And it's only slowly that we're able to do so. Very often also within Israel, there's also another insularity compounded by the conflict and the situation we find ourselves in. But there is a need for us to be able to develop on the basis of Jewish sources a greater sense of global responsibility. And that's what I refer to in terms of the obligation of Kiddush Hashem. And Kiddush Hashem Le'nei Goyim, it's both important to do, it's important to be seen. When Moshe defends the Jewish people against the divine wrath that's going to destroy it, his argument in both cases is Lama Yomru HaGoyim, Bilti Yecholet Hashem, or Lama Yomru Bara Utziam La'arogotam Be'arim. In other words, it's true what the Goyim says in practical terms. It's not important what the Goyim say, it's important what the Yidden do. But nevertheless, it doesn't mean that it's unimportant how the Goyim perceive us, and our responsibilities to them, and our responsibilities for their welfare, and to ensure that what's sustained. That those dimensions of universal Jewish ethical responsibility are not articulated, certainly not within our Orthodox community adequately, I would say for historical, sociological reasons, not because there aren't these sources and these resources within our heritage. But of course, in addition to Shabbat, there's the sabbatical year, which is the model of sustainable development, which is both also understanding and very much in sync with Laudato Si', which is the understanding that there is a link between the social and the economic and the relationship between, therefore, people's own sustainability as well as that of the environment. Because, of course, you have three components within the sabbatical year. You not only have the land that can rest, you also have the cancellation of debts, so there's no poverty trap, and that people therefore not caught up in the poverty trap. This was essentially an agrarian society where loans were only for the purpose of being able to once again sustain your agricultural cycle. And therefore, and then the third aspect of the sabbatical year is
Use of slaves.
also therefore so that nobody's in perpetual servitude. So that the manumission, I think, is the correct term, of slaves.